the network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AVWeek, episode 137, recorded Saturday, April 5th, 2014. Answering the distribution question. AVWeek is brought to you by Middle Atlantic Products and their TechPed technology pedestals. Middle Atlantic Products. What great systems are built on.
Ready.
AVWeek.
Performing scan.
Week.
Online.
This is AVWeek. This is AVWeek, your weekly wrap-up of audiovisual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I'm your host. How are you? With us this week is Bradford Benn and his coffee cup.
Hello, everyone.
Brad's from the Harman International. What does that say? I can't read what the coffee cup says. Yes, dear.
Yes, dear.
There you go. That makes sense.
All because my wife was nice enough to bring me coffee this morning. I have to make sure to use the right cup.
She didn't bring me any, so.
It's a little bit of a commute.
It was. Also with us is Paul Depperschmidt. Paul is from Cisco. How are you, sir?
Hi. Good. How's it going today?
Excellent. And last but not least, Matt D. Scott, who also has some beverage of choice. He was showing up before in the video.
Why?
He has Dr. Pepper.
He has Dr. Pepper in a
Dr.
Coke.
Pepper in a Coca-Cola glass.
In a Coca-Cola cup. And Paul has coffee as well.
My coffee's cold, but I'll have a little too.
I have water.
See?
So,
Tim,
you guys
you're
know.
such a quitter.
I know. AVNation.
Cool people are drinking coffee. The really cool people have Tim Hortons coffee.
And I do not have any Tim Hortons yet, Mr. Scott.
Wow,
AVNation.
it's like a bucket. That's not a cup. That's like a bucket.
It is.
Say that like it's a problem. I don't have blood. I have caffeine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good night. I have already lost control. AVNation is brought to you by Middle Atlantic.
You lost control as soon as you invited me.
Middle Atlantic Products and their TechPed technology pedestals. Check them out. Middle Atlantic Products. What great systems are built on? Yes, we.
You have to warn me you're going to do drop-ins, or so I don't, squish the sponsors.
Okay, I'm sorry. I will warn you next time. This week on AVWeek, we're going to talk about a number of things. Distribution. Cisco has some camera developments they're going around, and we're going to talk about the scary people that are not trying to take your jobs, but security companies and other companies like them that are getting into AV and into IT and seeing what they can where they can make a living. Actually, let's start out with Cisco, and since we have Paul, we'll start with him. Interrupt 2014 was this week, and well, Paul, you guys had a number of different developments. One of them being the fact that you have something you're calling a new, the people that wrote the story are calling a new ecosystem, live action and a number of different IP camera products. The fact that you guys are referring to it as an open IP platform, what exactly does that mean?
Well, you're not gonna be happy with this, but
Okay.
This is not my group.
Oh, well, never mind
Cisco,
then.
as you could probably imagine, Cisco's a pretty big operation. I did read this.
Okay.
And I know kind of what they're doing, but I know no one involved in this, and so I just put full up disclosure here.
Yeah.
But I think what I read about it kind of falls in line with some of the other things we're doing, which is kind of falls into the Internet of Everything, and into that role of being able to actually use the internets and the network for all types of traffic and all types of information. But what I gathered from this one in particular in our area was that what it does is actually, because you have the network sometimes drops, sometimes you have issues with getting it back, and security is so important that what it does is actually save a portion of the video on the camera. And so if your network, that's what I was gathering, was if your network goes down for a period of time, it'll actually hold it. And then as the network comes back up, it'll feed it back out in a proper manner is what I read from it. So,
well, let's talk about the whole, because you guys, as well as other folks as well, are doing the Internet of Things. I mean, Nest and Google, and we can talk about the fact that Nest this week stopped selling the their smoke alarm for a couple of different reasons. But that right there, the fact that the network goes down or this, that, and the other, and we are putting more and more things on the network. Is that a problem? And then if it is, how do we solve it?
Yeah, not for Cisco. I mean, that's been our goal all along. Get
Nicely
as much
done.
As we possibly can on the network. If you look back 15 years, that was the goal. And as we started to move more real-time communications on the network, of course, voice was really one of the first ones to move in, and then of course we went to video and really started to move digital signage and web conferencing like what we're doing now. That all runs on the network. And while it definitely affects bandwidth, it definitely affects how you control this type of signal over the network, in that this can't be broken like an email or something like that. So it's very critical that it comes in at the right pace and the right time, and it has the right priority, so that you can actually get it there on time. And so all of this has to be worked in. We know this is coming. I think it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that probably 90% of the traffic that's going to be running on the network is going to be video or voice or some type of real-time traffic. Yeah. So it's here to stay. It's going to get bigger, and we just have to adapt to it.
Okay. All right, Matt, let's kick it off with you then. If you're not running a Cisco product then, and it does go down, what do you do? I mean, what are some of the backup systems that you can put in place?
What other kind of network products would we use
other
than Cisco? Come on.
Very nice.
But
you don't have to be that nice.
Come on.
Every so often you have to do AVB, so you need to use an extreme network
Yes,
switch.
indeed. Well, actually, hang on. I'm not going to ask Paul this because it'll put him on the spot, but I have heard rumor that there is a super secret firmware in some Cisco switches and routers I didn't hear this from the Cisco person, I heard it from another integrator, that you can upload this super secret firmware and you can do AVB on a Cisco network. So
I've heard that, but I haven't seen it done or tested it.
And I would be one of these people who might know of this rumor of which you speak, and I still use the Extreme Network AVB certified one, mainly because there's enough moving parts that having a cohesive certified network makes my life easier, and I might keep some of my hair.
Yeah.
Well, and again, if it's one of those things where you can rule out the possibility of an issue, it's probably smarter, especially if you're building a deployment from the get-go and not trying to integrate into an existing system.
No, that's true.
Right. No, I would, everything that I've heard about AVB running on the routers and switches, and one of the people that I'm trying to keep up with that within Cisco is it's a hardware issue.
Okay.
And so I'd be a little surprised to think that you can get around it entirely with the software upgrade. And it could be that, I'm just guessing here, I don't know, that there are certain levels of router that the hardware may be at least somewhat capable, and the software gets it all the way there. I'm not sure.
You're saying we can quote you on that? That there's
I'm saying I'm stumbling around, but the latest I know, I mean, is if you want something official, it would be that we don't have AVB in our routers and switches, and there's no ETA for it. Not to say it would never happen, but it's something that's not imminent or anything that we're going to see anytime soon.
And that's the exact same thing I'm hearing from other people at Cisco who are on the AVB side. So,
yeah.
And I will, as a manufacturer, I'll say one of the things, and I'm sure Paul would say, is you put your own off-brand firmware in there. Of course, we're going to go, I don't know. You void the warranty, but we can only guarantee it works with our firmware.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So if you can make it work.
Killjoy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, no, and that was the rumor. That was again, I've never seen this done.
Actually, I'd be curious to know about it. If anybody does run across it, they could send me some information. I'd like to know that was possible.
Yeah.
But to my knowledge, it's not. But
again, this was a rumor that another integrator told me that they had heard. So
okay.
It's like a friend of a friend who saw Bigfoot. So
Dude, I know that guy.
I know you know that guy. You are that guy, actually.
In Canada, we got all kinds of crazy stuff up here.
Yeah, only in Canada it's not Bigfoot. It's just some guy in a weird hat. From Pro Audio Central, Allen Heath appoints E&E as the distributor for Allen Heath products. Now, Not that Allen Heath isn't a fine company, and I'm sure E&E as well, but really isn't about the story. It's more about the system, right? And I've got two fine manufacturers and an integrator. This is the debate I want to have in the conversation. What is better for the end user? What is better for the integrator? And what's better for the manufacturer? Is it the distribution channel where you go through somebody like Almo, like another distribution line, or is it better to have a direct relationship where it's you purchase it straight from Cisco, straight from Harman, straight from Crestron or AMX? Matt, we're going to kick it off with you because you have an interesting story, first of all, that directly talks about this. And I'm not asking for numbers or names, just you have an interesting story.
So I'll get you numbers and names. No.
Yeah, but what for you, from your standpoint, as the person in between the manufacturer and the end user, what's better for you?
Well, I do want to interject something before Matt goes off on his tangent.
Is your name Matt? Hold on. When did it change?
This is a tough crowd.
It is a tough
We both
crowd.
have 2 push.
You have no idea.
You can jump my gun.
Yeah, I said I wanted to say interject before you started talking. Don't make me have to pull out Robert's Rules of Order on you.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Bradford.
The floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you. Matt is an international distributor for a U.S.-based company. Or he's in an international market for a U.S.-based company. Yes. So there are kind of 2 different models to look at of the international and the domestic. So
definitely. And that was awesome. Yeah, no, that was how I was going to lead off that. Because I am in Canada, it is... No, you don't have to leave. You can stay.
I'm going to go get my book.
Oh, perfect. Because I am a Canadian firm, excuse me, and we do the majority of our actual sales business in Canada, we do deal with some different things that most people in the U.S. will deal with. That being said, because of that, the large portion of our business is distributor. Most of Canada is dealt with on a distributor-based level. So for us, again, the majority of our products that we sell and deal with are mainly purchased through distribution. Perfect.
I guess I should make noise so I show up so that people see the book I'm holding up.
And what book is that? It's the Guerrilla Guide to Robert's Rules.
There you go.
Beautiful. So for us, we buy almost everything through distribution, and it's really a two-headed beast. It's very effective because it means that we have one account, if you will, that we need to deal with and go through to get a wide range of products. The downside is that and again, part of this is very Canadian specific. A lot of our price points are very interesting, shall we say. And the other thing, again, not being in the U.S., sometimes our time frames are as far as like shipping of products is much, much longer. We do not, as a rule, have too many companies that will drop ship, especially if it's not within the country. So if it's got to come from, I just ordered some products from a great company in Pennsylvania through one of my local distributors here in Toronto, and it's not in stock in Toronto, so it is going to take, rather than drop shipping from Pennsylvania to me directly, it has to go from Pennsylvania to Toronto, sit in Toronto for a day or 2 days, and then ship to me. So I'm now into a 2-week, most likely 10 business day process to get a product that could have been effectively overnighted to me in a night or 2 days at most. The pricing side of things can vary dramatically, and we were talking before we listed about some products that we're specifying for a upcoming project in the essentially headphone amp side of things, and our pricing is our distributor-based pricing is higher than street value, which makes it, and we're not talking TVs and stuff that are highly commoditized. We're talking products that should have a decent margin, and we should be able to sell and actually make some money. And most likely these will be something that ends up getting purchased by the consumer from essentially, it's not Amazon, but essentially from Amazon, because it's cheaper than me purchasing it and trying to sell it back to them.
All right. Now that we have that out there, and I'll mention a couple of things as we go along here. Bradford, well, he mentioned amplifiers, so we'll start with that. From the manufacturer standpoint, and I'm not asking you to specifically speak for Harman, but from your point of view, is it a better situation to have a distributor channel, or is it better for everybody involved to have a direct, company manufacturer to integrator?
This is kind of a multi-headed beast, so we can talk internationally, especially where the primary language is not English, and having a local distributor that translates your manuals and offers warranty service and is in your time zone and all that stuff can be advantageous. So there is that, where overseas, and I think a lot of people are doing that also because of trade regulations and sales and having to take care of everyone overseas. So that's kind of one model. And yes, Canada falls into international market for us, even though it's, so close, but it is an international market. So we go through a distributor there. We don't sell direct to people. In the States, we have a mix and match of dealers that we, sell to direct, and that has the advantage of they can call us up. They can issue, and we can issue them a return merchandise authorization right then on the phone, because we have their credit information. And then you have other dealers who don't do the volume that's needed, or just do 1 and 2 pieces and aren't at the same level as some of our integrators, and they go through a distribution channel, whether it be an Almo, an Avid, Empire Wholesale, take your pick, and they have to go back through them for the return merchandise authorization because they don't have any financial standing with the company. I think part of that also depends on the way the company is run. One of the things that Harman does, and I can't speak for everyone, is that we treat the warranty as if it's through to the person. So if someone wants to send it back to us for repair and we send it back to them, no problem, we can do that directly with the end user. If someone wants an advanced replacement, we need to get some credit terms there just from a financial standpoint, and that's easier through a dealer. But we don't differentiate when it comes to tech support and things like that, of whether it's a dealer, an end user, a distributor, an integrator, take your pick. It's, you own a product, we're going to help you. There are pluses and minuses to both.
Well, that's a huge deal, though, because, again, being in an international market, I deal with this all the time, and there are very few companies that do that. There are many times where we have to jump through hoops to deal with whoever. So our client, they'll call, and it'll become a, well, where did you purchase this from? Who did you get it from? It needs to go back through them. And that, again, it's added time, added cost for us. One of the other points I'll add to that is that a lot of times, again, with most of our companies that we purchase through distribution, after the 30 days, you're almost in limbo at times, because the distributor will take it back if there's an issue within 30 days from them selling it to you, not when you sell it on, as well as if there's an issue after the fact. Occasionally you'll run into a situation where the manufacturer wants you to send it back to the distributor, although the distributor won't take it because it's past their 30-day policy. And as soon as you add the international side into that, it becomes very limited. And I have boxes in my house right now that aren't even at the office that are products that we've had to eat because no one would take it back. Even though it was in the 1 year, they wouldn't deal with it.
And that is definitely a problem. I'm not going to say it's not. I can't speak for everyone's arrangement with their distributors, but we do expect our distributors to provide a certain level of support to stay a dealer. We expect our dealers to provide a certain level of support to stay a dealer, because there's a certain amount of brand equity that should come with that. And I'm, like I said, I'm not speaking specifically as Harman, but I'm talking about my experience there, and my experience as a previous integrator is I do believe that the warranty should follow the product, not who you bought it from. Now, if you want to return it and get an advanced replacement and there's money trading hands, you need someone that you have financial standing with. And that's just welcome to, the 24, the 2010s, whatever the right phrase is for this. It's just part of the financial implications of doing business nowadays. But I do think that having localized distribution should be helpful. Like, say, for instance, we were to sell into Quebec. I don't speak French, but our distributor in Canada, in theory, speaks French. I've heard them speak French. I think they've talked bad about me when they're speaking French.
No,
well,
I'm sure no one would ever do that.
Because here's the thing: you've got you. I don't know if Harman does, but Cisco does, and Extron, and AMX, and Crestron, and a number of larger companies have international offices, right? Oh, yeah. So, and that's kind of where I understand your point, Bradford, when it comes to a local, whether it's French or German or Chinese, and you can get into the different flavors of the different dialects in China. I understand that part, but when you've got an international company, and Harman is, that have local offices there, then that's where you've got somebody there that can do that, right?
Yes, and we do have local offices in a couple of places. We do have a local office in China, but we also, because of the way China's set up, we also have a distributor, because it makes sense sometimes to go through distribution, sometimes to go direct. Okay. I hate to say it all depends, because that's a Pat Brown answer, but it does depend a whole bunch.
No,
it is a little bit of we have the same challenge here in the States of if someone wants to buy one amp, do you set them up as a dealer or do you put them through distribution? And you think about all those 1 or 2 amp sales overseas, and you say distribution is better.
Yeah.
So
if I could jump in, I guess at that point and kind of take it from there, which is I've actually worked with manufacturers that done it a lot of different ways, and there is some of that. It depends the size of the company, the amount of sales you make, how many products you have, which makes those kinds of decisions. But I think there's one of the things that is important to distinction is, do you possibly purchase your product through a distributor, but you still have a relationship with the manufacturer? And I think that's probably more important than essentially product fulfillment, because when you really get to it, in most cases, we have the same kind of rules. At Cisco, you have to have a certain amount of sales in order for us to deal with you directly, and it's large. You've got to really run a lot of product. Otherwise, you'll go through distributor. That does not mean you don't have a relationship with the manufacturer, and that we work with you to kind of direct on a lot of bases, even to the point where a lot of the largest partners that we have actually purchase from direct and distributors. And so there's a lot of benefit. In some cases, they can get product faster through a distributor that has it on the shelf than they can get it through the manufacturer directly. And they can also spread their credit. And so we see this happen a lot, where they'll buy from us to a certain amount, and then they'll buy from distributors to a certain amount, potentially multiple distributors from a certain amount. And so I guess there's a connotation, especially in the AV space, that if you buy from a distributor, that you're some kind of lesser entity or some lesser quality. And I think that should be managed by the manufacturer to say, this does not mean you're kind of a lesser partner. This means that this is just probably in some ways is the better and in some ways somewhat a more proper process to work through. So you get them to work with and you get the manufacturer to work with. You just fulfill your product through the distributor. Well, so I think that's the big distinction.
Yeah, because the bottom line really should be, it really shouldn't matter where you're purchasing your products from. We are one of those companies who, even with like Middle Atlantic, we buy and purchase direct from them. We're a direct dealer with them. We are also able to obtain it from 2 other distributors, and it just comes down to essentially what we need, when we need it, and what's going on. If I need, if I need one small or a couple of rack shelves, I'm possibly not going to get it direct from Middle Atlantic if I'm placing a huge order with Avid tomorrow, because I'm dealing with 2 freight issues. I can roll that together. It'll all ship as one. It's no problem. The downside is that doesn't obviously, in a lot of situations, that will not count towards my numbers with the company that I'm purchasing direct from. But it's much more effective, especially with somebody like that who has a huge product scope, to be able to call someone who works directly for the company and get the exact information I need from everything, rather than dealing with some guy that works the desk at one of the distribution houses who may not be as familiar with it. We do the same thing with Lutron, where we purchase direct through 2 distributors, or sorry, not direct. We purchase through 2 distributors, but we have a great relationship with them on a corporate level. So if we have any issues, I never call my distributors and ask them if this dimmer will work with this lighting load. I call my rep from the company. I call, Pennsylvania directly to speak to someone. And it's very advantageous for us to keep that relationship open, even though we could go direct. Again, being international, it means that we're shipping stuff from Canada versus shipping some stuff from Pennsylvania to Canada all the time. And it's a hard thing because there are, and I see it at every trade show, when I walk into some of the booths and they ask if we're a direct dealer with them or not, and we say, no, we purchase through this distributor. Every now and again, depending on the manufacturer, we'll get you'll have to go talk to this person because they deal with distribution. And you do at times get treated as if you're not as special as some of those direct accounts, which is, in my case, is always just hilarious because most often we can't buy direct because we're in Canada. We don't have a choice.
Well, and let me ask that because let's get to the bottom line, because the bottom line is the bottom line. I mean, Matt told the story about how his client could purchase the product cheaper than he could, and that was one thing that I've noticed in my indoctrination into the integration space coming from higher ed.
Welcome to our world.
Yeah, thank you.
It's crazy.
Is more than one distributor and more than one manufacturer has used the line. Your price is the same as everybody else's. It's across the board. And had one distributor even mentioned B&H by name because apparently that B&H is the one that a lot of end users, Matt can contest to this, will say, hey, I saw it online for this price. And sometimes that price is the exact same price or less than what we as integrators can purchase it for. And I'm not smart enough to know if that's a distribution channel, if that's them getting it direct. I mean, that's I guess where my bigger question comes in is from an integrator standpoint. You're sitting here needing to go through distribution because like Paul and Bradford said, you don't sell enough, and I get that. I understand that. That's not where I'm going with this. But when you're sitting here, well, you're Canadian.
No, you're Canadian. It's not that you don't sell enough masks; that you're in a different country.
Yeah,
I know.
But I guess that's where I'm coming from. And I understand everybody has to make money along the way. But when you're sitting here and you're dealing with a house of worship, in Springfield, Illinois, and you've got a projector that you're paying $1,000 for, and they can buy it for $995 from B&H. Where are you making money then?
Can I jump in on that one for a moment?
Yes, absolutely.
I think this goes back to way back when I was with Panasonic years and years ago, and there were in the broadcast and television systems we had product that was, what would you consider? It was like small camcorders, inexpensive camcorders that were just drop and ship. A lot of that has to do with the product that you're selling. And in some cases, it is what it is. If it's a commodity type product, it's pretty tough to put a lid on it and protect the guys that are local. On the other hand, there is product that does require integration, that does require some face-to-face contact, and how do you manage that type of product? Now, back then, we actually had something called the S&I program where you would actually have to go out, get a customer to sign it, and say that I came out and did the setup and install. And then you turn that back into Panasonic, and we'd give a rebate back to the local partner. So you actually had to go out there in order to do it. So the manufacturers kind of have to think in those terms and saying, if it's a commodity, again, it's pretty tough. I mean, it is what it is. And we had B&H at Panasonic that would sell stuff for, and I had Vidicomp and other places like that would sell things at very low margins. But that's just the way that game was played. But once you started to get into the more higher-end systems and the more sophisticated systems, we did try to put some things in that would protect that local partner, the one that had to be out there in the field. And so that's what a manufacturer has to work through is keeping those kind of product lines segregated where you can actually make a profit when you're doing the install and setup and all that type of thing. So I think that's part of it.
And we've done something similar. We have products that. Sorry, Matt, I'm jumping in.
I see. I'm used to it.
We have products that are contractor only. They are not available through the commodity market. So there are products that you have to be a contractor, whether it be have a contractor's license or however you determine it. You have to be a contractor, and those are only available. Now, you can buy it through a distribution channel, but it's at full retail. The idea being is exactly to Tim's point of we're trying to give the integrator the street price is full retail, and your price is less than retail, even if you go through a distributor locally, a U.S. distributor, so that you can still make your margin. So we realize that, and I'm sure, like Paul mentioned, Cisco does similar things. I'm sure of some products are just commodities. You're just going to ship them. You want to buy, it sounds funny from a manufacturer standpoint, you want to buy a sea container full of amplifiers. It's the exact same amount of paperwork and cost for us as if you buy one amplifier, because we still need to enter that into the system and all that. So we do offer economies of scale. I'm pretty sure every manufacturer does. So there is a certain part of that, and that's one of the reasons for some of our smaller dealers, we say go through distribution, because then they can get that economy of scale through the distribution. So it is a very difficult line to walk as everyone plays through this. Now, to get to one of the big questions is what happens when it breaks. Going through B&H and purchasing something through B&H, you can still call and get help, but if you need to return a product, it has to go back through B&H to come to us. And we have that same model with Avid and the same model with Empire Wholesale. And, pick your end person. And then comes the whole problem of you have people who sell on the internet that aren't actually licensed dealers and all that. So the sales channel is a lot more challenging than I think people think about.
It's very complicated. It's a very complicated process, and as soon as you add international into the mix, again, being Canadian, we're so close to the border that we have clients that don't understand that, again, there can be warranty issues when they purchase direct from a U.S. company like B&H, which we still see a lot of stuff get purchased through. We just did a medium-sized house of worship upgrade project where we sold a bunch of products into it, including some stuff, including some stuff like some basic Whirlwind snakes. And those ended up getting purchased through B&H and shipped across the border because it just made more sense for the client. And we have an account with them, but our Canadian price point we couldn't explain it to the client. There was no way that we could go after that saying, hey, here, you did your research, you saw the price point differences, I can't touch that. So they bring it in and we install it, and again, we don't cover any of it because we didn't supply it. But a lot of times that does happen, and it's the same with our resi side, where when it comes to TVs, to panels, most often they get purchased at Best Buy by the client and put in by us because there's no margin, no markup. We quoted a project last week with like a $2,000 TV that Best Buy was $200 below our best wholesale price. Yeah. We can't compete with that, and obviously there's other factors at play that sometimes allow us to compete with that, but most often it becomes hey, you buy it through us, it's this price. You buy it from Best Buy, go ahead, pick it up. If you want us to do it, we'll charge you for it, and we do. But just as Paul said, when it's commoditized, it's very, very difficult to deal with, and unfortunately, it's even harder to explain to the client.
And there are some gotchas that we haven't really talked a whole bunch about, and I'm not an expert on this, but I've learned about it the hard way. There are some laws and guidelines as to what we're allowed to tell to our distribution channel and our resellers and our end users when they advertise price and what they can sell it for. We can't if you want to sell a product at a loss, you are legally allowed to. All we can say is you can't advertise it at this price. So there are some gotchas for the manufacturer as well. Of we can give everyone the same price, but if someone wants to advertise it at one point of margin, there's very little we can do other than we have a minimum advertised price that you might not be following. Yeah. So,
and I think you touched also on the on selling directly to end users, and that's a tough one as well. I mean, most every manufacturer I've worked with has the only time you do that is in very, very rare occasions. You just really try to keep it away from an end user based sales model to really kind of make sure it goes through the partners where it should, who have the techniques and the expertise to get it done, and also if those partners are going to be there, allow them to make a little money. If you go directly against them, I mean, I would have a problem with the manufacturer. Somebody that decided they were going to do that, I'd have a problem with them.
Well, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things that we deal with quite often is, again, mostly distribution here. There is a lot of local stuff, but there's also a lot of big distributors who have very large minimum order issues. And, again, being international, it does change things. But there are many companies that we cannot sell a product from strictly because we can't actually purchase it. One of my favorite mic companies, they deal with distribution here in Canada, and we don't sell enough microphones over a yearly basis to justify them opening an account for us, which means that a lot of times if we want to specify that, and if it's one of those projects where we're not just speccing but we're actually supposed to supply, we end up having to go essentially the retail route to buy it, because some of these companies will not do, as Brad said, a one-off order, and that is incredibly frustrating. And part of my issue comes with the fact that I also have a U.S. corp, and we do some work in the States, and I can do that in the States no problem. In Canada, I cannot, and we'd sell a lot more if we could, but the fact that there are so many companies that will not allow those one-off orders or those small one-time orders without opening an account and having minimum orders and all this other stuff. And I realize why that's in place, but to not allow a dealer to properly, the bottom line is we want to sell your products. When you make it so difficult for us to do it, again, even if it's a one-off or whatnot, that's ridiculous. We're going to go somewhere else. And, for myself, I've been a lifelong supporter of this mic company, but they won't sell to me, and it drives me insane because I end up having to go the end user route, which is ridiculous, just to get it done.
If you could say the reason why a lot of times why as a manufacturer you do that is exactly the other reason that you'd look at is to try to help you to make money. So it used to be in the old days, I'm dating myself here, but in the old days you would have a single dealer, for instance, for a city, or maybe two. And so you would say, for instance, Panasonic or Sony or something like that. You would say you were the Panasonic dealer for that city, and there weren't others. And so that was a way to kind of automatically make sure that you made money. And if you went out and hustled the business, you'd get it. That has all changed. And over the years, as I've been in the business, that has gone by the window. And now all partners carry all products.
You haven't been to Canada much recently, have you?
Well, it's still somewhat there. I know, and maybe that's just kind of a special situation. But in a lot of cases,
we're special.
That is it. It's really if you allow everybody to get it whenever they want it, then who's going to go out and sell it? And if there's no, who's going to go out and promote this type of thing on a regular basis? So some of this is trying to protect the partner base that you built. And if somebody comes along and says, a deal for one or two or whatever, if you were on the other side of that, you'd feel just as bad. If we were letting anybody come in and get access to the product whenever they wanted it, it would be just as bad. And so, it's kind of a tough one to figure out. But
it really is. It's that two-headed beast. It doesn't really matter which way you go. Someone's going to be upset. Someone's going to be frustrated, and someone's going to be mad. And it's always one of those things when it affects you directly, it really stinks. No matter what side you're on.
But I'll bet you I could find some partners in Canada that would say, "You sold it to Matt. He's not a dealer."
No.
And I went through all this training, and I spent all this money on demo gear and all this kind of thing, and then you guys just give it to anybody that comes along. So you get the point.
And that's where it always comes down to. I'm a big proponent of not letting anyone buy things. We see that with a lot of the lines we sell. But there's also something to be said for, like with Cisco, we're a Cisco partner, and we are able to sell to here. To here. And then there's a whole spec of products above here that we can't sell. and we can't sell directly, and we know that, and we work with partners who can. It's the guys, and we've gone through the, again, the certification process and the training classes and just as you said, to be able to sell to this point. I also know that I'm not going to sell much up in this spec, so I don't go after it. And that's the approach that I wish more companies would take, where, hey, you want to sell anything, you got to do this. You want to sell more, you got to do this. And work your way up so that, again, dealers who are trying to work with that brand, that company, whatever, at least have an avenue. It's the ones where Brad and I have talked quite a few times about some of these situations in the pro audio world where, they want $100,000 a year for something where you're selling, $1,000 mics. That can be difficult at times.
Oh, yeah.
Especially depending on markets. And, a lot of times, a lot of the people will take essentially a blanket approach to things or stuff that works in the States. They'll try and do it here and in other countries, and that doesn't always work. It's again, this is a topic that we could talk for days on and really not get anywhere.
Yeah, and for every 10 people that you bring in, there's going to be 10 different thoughts and concepts. And so it's a world all of its own. You could write books and have encyclopedias about it. So you're right, we could go all day and not hit all the topics.
Decided the whole system's broken. Nothing actually works for everyone, and we're totally ruined.
Basically, I'm just going to run everything through Matt.
The one thing I can say, that not that this is a Cisco thing or anything, but one thing that would always improve with Cisco is that they don't sell. You really can't find volume deals. That's not how it works. It is about certification. It is about how much you know and how much you've trained for. And so literally you can go as high as you want, but it's expensive to get all that certification and get everything that's bought into it. So that was not the case at Cisco for many, many years ago. It used to be those who sold the most got the most, and it really, and then when you get to product that is actually requires partners that really know what they're doing and have that expertise, well, in the old days, they'd run them all off because it was all just, it was a free-for-all. It was let the best shark win. And it was really, had to be changed in order to protect a partner who has that skill set and that capability. So, I would look for manufacturers that reward that, and really kind of look at it as how can I help those partners who truly do bring that talent and that capability to the field. It's not easy all the time, but you start to look for that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, in the extension of that, which would be a whole other topic, which I'm sure Tim would be very upset if we took over the rest of the show to delve into, would be the fact that, those certifications are important to purchase product or to obtain product properly, but a lot of times, what does that actually mean to the end user? Because most often, they don't know, they don't care, and they just want that price point of whatever product or solution they're trying to find. They'll go out and get it from anyone. We see that all the time with a lot of the products and solutions that we provide.
It gets worse
all the time doing it, and you are bleeding, my friend.
Whoops! And it gets worse when you have when you have dealers that don't get along with their end user. Who did the configuration, did the training, and did all that stuff, and then, for whatever reason, whether it be final closeout or whatever, doesn't work. And as the manufacturer, you're kind of in this weird thing of, do you support your dealer? Do you support the end user? And then the other joke is you need an integrator that's smarter than the product they're integrating. And
all right,
that's become this really weird circle.
We're going to let Bradford take care of his bloody nose for a second and step away for a second. And Bradford's with us. You're listening to AVWeek. Matt Scott and Paul Depperschmidt. And holy cow, this is kind of exciting. Matt's excited about this as well because our friend Becky from Middle Atlantic. We are proud to welcome our very first sponsor on AVWeek. AVNation is exclusively sponsored by Middle Atlantic Products. Middle Atlantic has designed a line of technology pedestals. So think about a couple years ago, Middle Atlantic came out with their credenzas, right? It was a sweet looking little credenza with drawers and stuff like that, and you open it up, And it's a rack, right? It's a rack. It's a place to keep things, but it's not an ugly rack. You can put this in boardrooms and stuff like that. Same kind of idea, only it's a conference table. So you've got a number of different possibilities when it comes to the overlays and the colors and things of that nature. But the rack is actually in the legs here, and that's why it's called a tech pad. Yeah, it is kind of. You've got two different legs there, so you've got places for both. You've got the little pop-ups for everything, and then you can look at the sheet here with the website. You've got you put down the two pedestals. You load it up with the equipment. You put the tabletop on. You put the coverings on the tech pad. And you've got an integrated system right there, so it is kind of a slick thing. It's very cool. If you're going to InfoComm this year, check them out if you would. So you can do all kinds of things. There's wild mold cable retractors, all sorts of stuff, and they even gave us a cool web page. So go to middleatlantic.com/AVNation-TechPed. middleatlantic.com/AVNation-TechPed. Middle Atlantic products. What great systems are built on. So,
if I can add something to that,
absolutely,
to that wonderful library, we deal with contractors and cabinet companies, millwork companies all the time, and the hardest thing, we just finished one 2 weeks ago, did the final walkthrough with the representation from the rep from the cabinet company, and we showed them the spec. We put a Middle Atlantic rack in. It wasn't a tech pad. But it was a wall rack that went into a system. Long and short, he looked at the specs we gave him and said, yeah, we can shave a little bit here. It won't matter. No one will notice. Yeah, now the doors don't close completely, so they're having to fix the whole thing. What makes these Middle Atlantic systems so phenomenal is you get to cut that millwork company out of it. You don't have that extra headache. You just spec it. We spec these all the time, and you're able to spec a system with all the everything you need without having to deal with another company and another chance to have something misinterpreted, misconstrued, or misbuilt, constructed poorly that doesn't make you and your company look the best. And that's where, again, great suppliers like Middle A help us so well. We love them. Yeah. And I'm done.
Okay. Even better ad.
Yeah, even better ad.
Hey, there we go.
Just remember, ask for Becky Duck and tell her Matt sent you.
Nice.
Don't do that. All right, guys. Last fall, the group that gave us HDMI 1.0 gave us HDMI 2.0. Yay! It's the latest specification, and as much grief as I've given the guys that do HDMI over the years, it is a good spec, and it is, I'm not crazy about, the connector necessarily, but, I understand the transport technology. It's given us a couple of different things, advanced 3D capabilities, yay. But it also gives us some faster speeds and things of that nature. Matt, first question for you, though, as a guy that deals in not just, professional, but you also do a fair amount of residential. Are we ready for it from a standpoint of the equipment that we have coming in, and are the customers ready for this new iteration of HDMI?
The customers aren't ready for it because to them it doesn't matter if it's HDMI 1, 1.3, 1.4, 2.0. They have, as a rule, no knowledge of that whatsoever. That being said, very few installations are requiring red ray players. We're still not seeing a wide adoption or even a small adoption of 4K panels and 4K sources. I know up here it's not available over any sort of broadcast whatsoever. At some point we'll get there, and I know they need it to continue to advance the technology as it currently exists, but the customer has no idea that there's a difference even.
Do you think they care?
No, they don't.
Okay.
I don't think they care. We don't see them caring, that's for sure. The appointment I did before this podcast, was dealing with clients who want to, they just bought a new house doing extensive renovations, but they're mounting their 7 and 5-year-old TVs that don't even have HDMI.
Wow.
And it's, it was all right, so we'll wire you for HDMI because you don't have it, but at some point you'll need it really soon. And, again, I think that's the issue that we see, is that so often people, they're not advancing as quickly as we think they are. And with something like this, where it's a number, like a numerical spec, they do need some form of, someone mentioned it in the comments of that article, that they need some naming conventions for this stuff so that people have a better understanding of what it is. Because as the consumer, they don't. And to be perfectly honest, with some of the systems that I see and that our company fixes on a weekly basis, it seems, a lot of the installers don't either. I've seen countless things, even in the last couple of weeks, where within the last year, companies have come in and put in, just basic 1.0 HDMI, and they're having issues with their ability, where they should be using 1.4 at a minimum, and now 2.0 as soon as it starts shipping.
Yeah. Paul, from a manufacturer standpoint, are you Cisco in general, but do you think the manufacturers are ready for this latest iteration?
Ready or planning? I guess I have not seen it. Necessarily discussions about it in our products yet. I think, kind of to Matt's point, I don't know that a lot of it has to be, what's the reason for it? Are we really going to need it? I mean, one of the things that I saw that was kind of interesting about it was 2 streams of video, so that you could actually get 2 streams of video up on the same screen. That's, we might be able to make use of that in some way. So you could use the same monitor and split it without having to have external gear or something like that. Maybe. But right now, I have not heard anything about us doing that yet. But then, of course, I'm not necessarily in the, in the product R&D. My guess would be they know about it, but I don't.
Okay. Bradford, go ahead.
No, go. Ask your question,
I was just going to ask you.
I'm looking at going, thank goodness it supports 3D. Yes, that's tongue firmly in cheek for those who aren't constant.
Oh my gosh! Can you imagine if it didn't?
Oh my! I would.
The hue and cry, riots in the street.
What would I do with my 3D glasses?
But I'm looking at this going, okay, it's nice. It's a good new feature. It gives you higher bandwidth, all this stuff. And to me, it's kind of like Category 5 wiring versus Category 6 wiring. Or sorry, Category 5E, now that 5's deprecated. It's the next standard, and is there a need for it? I'm not saying that there aren't applications that will need it, but to Matt and Paul's point, I'm not sure that it's useful for many entry-level products. I think this is a 20% of the market usage case, not a 80% of the market usage case. You need a red player. You need a 4K display. You need a display that can display multiple streams to take advantage of it. I haven't looked through to see what the audio quality was on it, but, it's this whole thing of you're going to have multiple differences. My pet peeve, and this is just my personal pet peeve, is that the connector's the same.
Yeah.
If it's not going to be that you can plug that you have no way of knowing that you plug a 2.0 into a 1.4 input, it's kind of a pet peeve of mine, at least with the Category 5 E cable versus Category 3. You knew the pins were different. It's harder to tell with 6, but it's still one of my pet peeves of all the things is if the standard is new, I hate having new connectors, but you need to have hopefully some good way to say this isn't working and here's why.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Instead of just saying, hey, it's the wrong iteration. So.
My favorite part of the 2.0 spec, and speaking strictly from a business standpoint, is it means that all of our 1.4 cable
it's all bad.
Has decreased in price. Wait up. I kid you not, in the last month, we have bought more HDMI, stocking up, if you will, because they're selling it for next to nothing right now, because they're awaiting all the shipments of the new 2.0 for systems that don't need it. But hey, again, if we can sell it, we're all over it. Why not?
Yeah.
Yes, no, you totally need the 2.0. Nothing else will work.
But then you have to buy the
32 channels of audio at 1.5 megahertz.
Okay.
I know I need 32 channels of audio. Yes, there's Atmos systems. I'm sure there's going to be an Atmos system at home. But once again, this is a 20% marketplace, not a 80% solution.
This is for
you don't have Atmos in your basement? What the heck? What are you doing?
Yeah.
I'm poor. I work for
I work for.
I got no audio system.
It's probably one of those things though that time marches on. We look back even 5 years ago at what we thought was the norm, and that was as good as it was going to get, and we're blowing through that and not even looking back. So it's inevitable. These kind of things happen, and you're going to start to get more and more and higher and higher. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah, the question is when are they going to start inserting 8K into this spec instead of 4K? So
it's a matter of time.
It is a matter of time.
It
It
is.
really is. It really is.
Well, the interesting thing that I've found is that I keep waiting for HD-based-T to continue to show up in wider adoption from a lot of the panel manufacturers and the amp manufacturers. And again, I know we're to that point where 2.0 will start to be used a lot, hopefully, in the next little bit. But that keeps being one of those things that people keep talking about, and we still don't really see it. And again, that would be one of those things that I think will change things more than 2.0 will.
And I would agree with that. Either whether it's HD-based-T or AVB, having that integrated, on the network.
Single point, single cable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think an IP transport's going to win before HD-based-T or HDMI is going to take off, because you can do gigabit at home cheap enough now that you can stream direct.
Especially if you're using those high-quality Cisco switches.
Yeah,
all right.
There you go.
Is he paying you?
No, I'll send you a bill, though.
All right, very good. All right, guys. That's on that note, I'd like to thank the gentleman. Paul Depperschmidt is from the fabulous Cisco. Thank you, sir. Where can people find you or find more about Cisco?
You can reach me at pdeppers@cisco.com. And of course, you can always go to cisco.com. There, you could spend a week going through the website there. But in my role, I'm actually in the collaboration world. So if you're thinking video conferencing, or you're thinking voice or instant messenger presence or WebEx or any of those kind of things, give me a shout, and we'll help guide you.
Okay. Also with us is Matt D. Scott from Omega Audio Video. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being here.
And where can people find you or Omega?
You can find me just about anywhere using Matt D. Scott, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Google+, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you can find the company, OmegaAudioVideo.com.
Very good. And last but not least, Bradford Benn from Harman International. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure as always. And since I know you're going to ask where can people find me, the flippant answer is your local Hampton Inn. The more realistic one is at Bradford Benn or bradford.ben@harman.com or Bradford Benn on almost any social media. I'm almost as much of a social butterfly as Matt Scott. We will be running smack on the hockey, although I can't make too much fun of the Blues.
No, you can't.
They actually are looking good at the moment as opposed to my Devils, which I have to hang my head in shame about.
That's all right. At least it's not the Rangers. So.
Hey, this is a family show. Don't bring up that name again.
No, our buddy George Tucker is a huge Rangers fan.
Rating again.
Oh, sorry. My name is Tim Albright. Don't follow me, but go by the website because Matt D. Scott made it, and he did a very good job. AVNation.
I found a bug this week.
Bradford did find a bug.
I made it just for you, though,
AVNation.tv, AVNation.tv. You'll find this program and a host of others. The guys just recorded a brand new Pico projector show. And you can also see the podcast that has the best hair in the history of the internet, the AV App Show, which has Matt D. Scott and Phil Cordell, Hi-Fi. So that posts typically every Wednesday or Thursday, Matt?
The two of us together.
Yes.
Some hair, serious hair.
Serious hair.
And don't forget Matt's hair.
Serious lack of.
Yeah, Paul and Bradford have the serious lack of, and
we are challenged in that direction.
I need more cooling for the big brain. That's my
That's what it is.
That's
right.
That's why Matt has hair and I don't.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just insulate the brain. Keep it warm. It's cold up there, man. It's Canada.
Cold in Canada.
And is it your hair's Twitter account at Matt D. Scott Hair?
Yes, Matt Scott's hair.
Matt Scott's hair. That's what it was. So yeah, go by the website. You'll also find I almost said a Google ad, an ad for our sponsor this month, Middle Atlantic. So click on that if you would, please. AVNation.tv, AVNation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. It's all the time we have for
Bye, everybody.
AVWeek.